Good evening. I want to call the meeting to order for the Bryan Board of Public Affairs November 19th meeting. If you would like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. John, would you care to do the roll call, please?
I will. Karen Ford,
Present.
Annette Schreiner,
Here.
Jim Salsbury,
Here.
Dick Long,
Present.
and Bob Arnold.
Yes.
Thank you. We are going to add an item to amend the agenda item. It's going to be item number 6. We are going to replace the 535 Electric Capital Fund with 515 Electric Capital Fund when we get to that. Next on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the November 5th, 2024 meeting. Oh, we need a motion. Yes, okay, thank you. Yes. Please.
Seeing no additions or corrections, I make a motion that we adopt November 5th minutes as written. I'll second.
Dick,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Annette,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes.
We need a motion on the change to the agenda as
Okay.
well. If
Okay.
you want to redo that.
Thank you. And, okay, motion?
I'll make a motion that we change Fund 535 to 515 Electric Capital Fund on item agenda number 6.
I'll second.
To
Annette?
change.
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Karen,
Yeah.
Jim,
Yes.
and Dick.
Yes.
Thanks. That was just a typographical error.
Yes. Okay, next is to approve the minutes.
We did that.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Minutes are done.
It's around number 4.
Second for the.
Oh, minutes are done.
Oh, the minutes. So we did that out of
Yeah, they were
order.
just in
We didn't
reverse
need to-
order.
All right, all right. That's what you meant by the minutes.
Second.
Okay, hearing of public concerns. Seeing none, next up is Clerk-Treasurer Report. John?
Yeah, the board has received copies of bank statements, bank reconciliation, financial statements for the city and the utility for the month ended October 31. And if you have any questions for me at this time or anytime in the future, I'll take those questions anytime.
Thank you.
I make a motion that we accept the Clerk Treasurer's Report for month ended October 31st, 2024.
I'll second.
Annette,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes.
Up next is a resolution authorizing the transfer from 501 Electric Fund to 515 Electric Capital Fund. John, would you number and read by title, please?
Resolution number 26, 2024, authorizing the transfer from the 501 Electric Fund to the 515 Electric Capital Reserve Fund.
So for the past few years, we've found it to be beneficial to budget for additional capital transfers and build into the 2024 approved electric budget is an additional transfer of $300,000. As we discussed last week with the Finance Committee and John, we won't be budgeting those additional transfers going forward, but I would still respectfully request that the board approve this transfer for capital projects.
Any questions? Motion?
I'll make a motion we approve. Second.
Jim,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Karen, Annette,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes.
And up next is the 2025 budget presentation. Gary will start.
Good evening. We have a few slides prepared tonight for an overview of the 2025 draft budget. The draft budget has been reviewed in detail by the Finance Committee, so thank you for meeting with us last week. I'll provide a brief financial overview, and then our department heads will talk about their capital projects. We'll go ahead and start with the electric utility and talk about power supply. As always, power supply costs are BMU's single greatest annual expense. Last year, total power supply costs represented about 77% of the total O&M expenses. Each year, AMP provides us with a power supply forecast. And for 2025, that forecast is $8.5 million, or $46.65 a megawatt hour. On the next slide, when I talk about the forecast, I'm going to use the number 8.7 million, but that includes the service fees from AMP as well. The 8.5 is just power supply. This is also down from 12.4 million, and that is due to the peak shaving success that we had in 23 and 24. For the 24 peak shaving season, that resulted in nearly $10.7 million in savings. And during the calendar year 2025, we'll see about $8.4 million of those savings on our bills. The peak shaving helps negate the loss of the DP remaining requirement contract, and also helps with the PJM capacity increases as well. About 23.8% of our energy sources are from renewable energy. The EPA did set a goal of 25%. We are a little bit below that. And I know this isn't related to the budget, but I do want to bring it up. A couple of months ago when Mike LaBour was here, we talked about future power purchase agreements, and we talked about Blue Creek Wind and adding that. After several conversations and discussions with John Courtney, our consultant, he recommended that we not participate in the project. There's some unfavorable terms in the agreement, but going forward, we're going to look for additional renewable sources in 25. So I just wanted to share that. We talked about it a couple of months ago, and it's kind of our winter.
Is that the highest percentage we've had?
I think we have been over 25.
Okay,
When
okay.
we had landfill gas, and previously when we had Blue Creek Wind. So.
Okay, that's why I'm sorry to interrupt.
Next slide here is just another look at peak shaving and the significance and the importance of it, and the positive effect that it has on our rates. There you can see for 2025, there's that $8.5 million number, which was originally $12.4 million without the peak shaving. So you can kind of look through the years there and see like at 66%, that would be like maybe if you missed a 1CP, or maybe one of the generators didn't run during an event. So them and the power plant, they do a great job, and we typically always hit that 100%. Looking at the energy sources for 2025, largest source comes from Prairie State or coal, about 33%. We get a large percentage also from natural gas at AFEC at 21.1%. And then also we do have quite a few different hydro projects, and that accounts for 22.4%. We will be looking at purchasing around 22% of the power from the market in 25. And again, from that power supply update with Mike, the target was kind of 10 to 20%. So we are a little bit over that. But as I mentioned, we're going to continue to look into some additional renewables, which would likely be more solar. Moving into the electric 501 O&M fund. Looking at the revenues. Charges for services. In 2024, we budgeted $19.9 million. We're projected to end the year at $17.8 million. And for 2025, we've proposed revenues at $18.9 million. Charges for services include electric meter charges, security lights, and special and temporary services. Of the $18.9 million, approximately $18.8 million of that is metered electric charges. And those are also based on projections that we get from Salsbury and Associates. We also take a look at the power supply cost, the power cost adjustment, and also the trends. Transmission and generation, we budgeted $225,000 in '24. Year end is around $286,000, and for 2025 we're proposing $240,000. That is the JV4 transmission line. Those are the revenues that are generated from the wheeling charges. The renewable energy credits or the REC sales, those are from BMU owned facilities at Allglaze and the solar field. We budgeted $75,000 in '24. As you can see, year end is almost $270,000. So we did increase that revenue to $100,000 based on trends. Most of the REC sales this past year went for about $33 to $35 a REC. Other operating income as well. There is a significant change there. We budgeted $82,000 in '24. 25, we're looking at $336,000. That includes the final fiber lease payment from the 509 fund to the 501 fund. So that'll be a revenue in electric, and when we get to communications, it'll be an expense. And the last one I want to just note on here is the interest income. There's about a $55,000 increase from 2024. Overall, for '25, we're projecting revenues at $20.3 million, which is a slight 3% decrease from 2024. Electric expenses, purchased power. In '24, we budgeted $10.5 million, projected to end the year at about $8 million. And so we proposed expenses at $9.7 million. And again, this is where I talked about the forecast from AMP. They're forecasting about $8.7 million. We do take a look at the year-end projections, the historical trends, and also a little bit of a conservative approach, especially with the purchased power cost. Power plant operations. In '24, we budgeted $2.4 million. Projected to end the year at $2.2. And again, for 2025, we proposed $2.4 million in expenses. Distribution operations, that's the electric distribution for the EPD. We budgeted $2.3 million in 2024. We're projected to end the year at $1.9 million. And we again budgeted for expenses of $2.3 million. And the other one to mention on this slide is the electric communications. So that's the 501H. That is where the 509 is rolling to. So you can see there is an increase there. 2024, we budgeted $477,000. And in '25, we're budgeting $862,000. Like I said, we began the process of rolling the 509 into the 501. That includes all wages and benefits. And also as many operational costs as we can leave in there. And then looking forward to 2026, the remaining expenses will go to the 501. In total for the 501 O&M, $18.9 million, and that is down about 2% from 2024. This slide is just going to take a look at our projected operating results, our fund balances. We ended 2023 and began 2024 with a fund balance of $12.2 million. In '24, our projected year-end revenues are $19.6. Our expenses are $15 million. Leaves us with a net margin of about $4.6 million. Once you take into consideration the debt service, the $114,000, That is for the principal and interest payments of the AMI system. Also, the $300,000 capital transfer that you just approved gives us an increase in the fund balance of $4.2 million. So we're projecting to end 2024 at $16.5 million and begin 2025 with that same amount. Total revenues in 25 are proposed at $20.3 million. Our expenses are at $18.8 million with a net margin of $1.5 million. Again, debt service for the AMI. And then we're proposing just the one transfer this year in January of $2.2 million. Does give us a decrease in the fund balance of about $813,000. Our fund balance at the end of 2025 is projected to be $15.6 million. The minimum cash reserve calculation is about $11.1 million, so we're still well above that cash reserve policy. So we go to the capital budget and we'll turn it over to the department heads. Unfortunately, Joe can't make it tonight, but I'm going to talk about his leadership.
Power plant doesn't have a long list this year, but we're still trying to get the power plant substation completed. We have all the major stuff purchased. The fence and the containment has been changed. We've got all the fencing material purchased and on site, and the spill containment is just going to go around the transformers. So we had to redo that just because of all the ground grid work and things like that. So we just got 50,000 up there just to catch any incidentals that we may have missed. For instance, just the two things around the transformers, like $40,000 for those two spillways, containment areas. GT1 and GT2, we were getting the fire systems inside the buildings checked, and they're no longer allowed to have that material, so we have to upgrade. And we got a couple companies in to look at that. One option was to use this chemical stuff that every 3 years it expires. You have to refill the tanks. Or we could do CO2. But because of the building's area, it's going to take a lot of CO2 and stuff. But each one of those, one was like 220, 230, and then the other one was closer to 300,000. So we'll have to go out for a bid, obviously, but we're hoping to get one of those done each for $250,000 and get the fire systems inside the house for the generators updated. The electrical study is a split between Al and I, and that's kind of for the arc flash and the overcurrent and those kind of things. Get those updated with industrial sub and the different changes that we're doing with the power plant. And then of course the network, two items there is kind of for Joe to, update our communications and network servers and things like that. From the Auglaize hydro plant, every year we have some kind of concrete repairs. This year we were able to get underneath floodgate, and we used the ART, advanced rehabilitation stuff to do both spots, and the front of the dam. The front of the dam, I had to actually get a crane in to do that, but that stuff has all been sealed back up and is repaired for the time being. But we always seem to cut something after the winter, especially when the ice comes through and does something. The DC power supply upgrade, I know that Dick knows this, but the power supplies for 1, 4, and 5 are very old. They're obsolete. They've been obsolete for years, and we kind of repair those in-house. So I was going to try to see if I couldn't get an updated one that could replace those, and also add a reactor in front of them to help minimize the spikes that come through when we have a power outage or some kind of spike that comes across the line, because that's usually what takes out the parts on the boards. And then of course the network is more for Joe's end of the thing. Any questions on those?
I just had one, Jim, real quick. The fire suppression, the halon, it's no longer, you won't be able to use that?
The current system is more of a chemical system,
Oh.
not necessarily a halon system. The trouble with the halon system is the same as with what this first system that needed to be, the chemical in the bottles had to be redone every 3 years. The halon system completely eliminates oxygen.
Yeah.
So the new system that we're looking at for CO2 does the same thing, except it allows us to deactivate it when we enter the building. So when the guys go do their checks once an hour in the back or something, they can actually deactivate the system while they're in there, and then reactivate it when they leave.
Because I got caught in there when that halon went off once, and I'm gonna tell you something, you can't breathe.
No, you can't. I've used that system in a lot of other places that I've worked in the control rooms because of the electronics in there.
Yeah.
You don't want water and things. Questions?
When you say, I have a quick question.
Sorry.
So when you say upgrade the system, you're replacing, I'm assuming this is done with pipes throughout the building and stuff, so you're gonna replace the pipes and everything?
Yeah, the pipes have the old material in them from where it's went off
Okay.
occasionally in the past, so we have to replace those. The controller will not function with the new system, and the CO2 bottles obviously have a different rating than what that chemical does that we currently have.
Okay.
Is that a simple process when you have to replace that chemical? Would you say every 3 years?
The new one that they said we had to do every 3 years,
Okay.
and it was a few tens of thousands of dollars.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, that's kind of crazy to get a system like that when you get CO2, you can either remove the bottles or you can have a truck come here and just recharge it like Circle K does to their soda pop machine.
Right.
On the electric distribution, a lot of these are typical items that we have every year is our system URD. Of course, that's our overhead to underground conversion projects that we do throughout the year. We have a number of them that come up during the year. I do have some listed, the 300 block of East, 300 block of East Bryan, 600 block of East South, and the 1800 block of East High, and then Brighter Street. There's a few of them that are potential projects for that. With our new directional boring rig, we hope to get into some of that this year. We've had one training since we've got that in late summer, since we've got our directional boring. So we obviously need some more time with it to get familiar with it so we know how to operate it and do it efficiently. So these are projects that we would do with that. The next one are overhead rebuild projects, are lines that potentially could be rebuilt. One of them is on County Road E from Main Street to County Road 13, up by the industrial park. South Union from South Street down to County Road C, that would be a potential project. And then on Noble Drive, or on West South Street from Noble Drive to Main is another project. Switches are our 600 amp main switch, overhead switches that we budget to buy a couple of those a year. Fault indicators are the devices we put on the lines when we have a fault to show us, what direction that fault occurred. Helps us with outage times and things like that. We usually try to budget for some of them every year. Distribution transformers, that's our pole and pad mount replacements, our three-phase transformers that come about every year. We have, seen a little bit of improvement in the market buying these. Looks like we're about 18 weeks on our poles and pad mount, like our single-phase stuff. And we just got a quote on a 500, and it seems like they quoted third quarter of 25 of getting that three-phase. So it's less than a year. So that's, I guess, improvement. It's not the 10 to 12 weeks we used to get, but anyhow, that's, we budget for those every year. Pole replacements, we want to do pole testing in the northeast quarter of town, which is this area up here. And with that, we have a number of different replacements that need to happen due to that evaluation. So we usually purchase, loads of poles for that. Street lighting, potential projects with city improvement projects is Rollin, 100 block of Rollin, 100 block of Baker, and or the 100 block of Blakesley Avenue could be potential projects that the city may or may not do. I just want to have that shown that there could be potential street lighting improvements happening with those projects. Also, I'd like to start replacing these the first generation LED fixtures that we have. They're the 43 pound, I know Jim knows about these, that we did with the RRA grant back in 2010. So we're on 14 years now with these lights, and we're starting to see some failures, to be honest. So we'd like to budget maybe, I don't know, if we could do 20 of them and just start maybe replacing them here every year, trying to keep ahead of it. So, and that's mainly on our east and west High Street line and our north and south Main Street runs, our main lighting. So, if we don't do a lot of these projects, that's probably where we'll concentrate a lot of that, will be those replacements. As Jim mentioned, the electric system study that we're splitting, 2015 we did a study like this, which laid out a 10-year capital project planning for our major infrastructures. We started out with the 69 FF6 OCB change outs, and then the Schweitzer relaying upgrades that we did with that. And we went out to replace Daggett substation with the industrial sub, went in to get Titan tire off the 34.5 and getting them on the 69 through that sub. That was another step. And then the power plant, of course, then building the 69 up the alley, getting rid of the 34.5 towards Baker. That's completed. And now we're just finalizing the run from the power plant over to Cherry Street right now to get that done. So once that's done, we've really completed a lot of those projects that were shown on that 2015 study. And now we need to kind of lay out what the next 10 years looks like. So a big part of that study is that 10-year capital project plan, along with doing a short circuit report, which with all of our different, impedances and our transformers and stuff, all the new stuff that we have out there, line size and things like that, the 69 voltage upgrade, changes those short circuit reports, and we'd like to do an upgrade with this to update those. And these are things that I get asked about by industry, what our available fault current is at the transformer. And then they build off of that to do their short circuit studies internally. So having good data to give them is important, and that's part of that short circuit. And also the load flow analyst is, looking at capacity of our circuits and how the load is flowing and how to improve that. That's part of it. Fuse device coordination. Of course, that's making sure that you're using the right fuses so they trip before your main circuit trips. And that's all that in that study. And of course, the arc flash is designed to look at what type of FR clothing our people need to wear in certain aspects of or areas of our system to make sure they're safe, when wearing the right gear. That's all part of that. And also an update with all of that, updating the ETAP system model that we have, which gives us all the data that we need to complete everything pretty much shown. Having that updated as part of this helps with those numbers as well. So that's something we want to do next year, and kind of lays out things too for the next 10 years. I have on here the Deerfield underground replacement again. This is materials only because we plan on doing that with our boring rig. And then the Carson Drive, there's a section over there that we'd like to do also in-house with our boring rig. But we need some money for some conduit and wire and materials. Transmission line rebuild project, that's replacing the insulators from the let's say, kind of the negative area all the way over to the Bechtel switchyard. And that would be about 150 insulators that were installed about 1990 to replace those. The final thing is our electric warehouse edition. This has, been something that, we budgeted this year to do the engineering and figure out, what we need to do and how we're gonna do it. We've come up with a good plan in that. We're working through some details with the EPA and our sewers, our storm sewers and sanitary sewers back here, making sure that we satisfy all their needs and their desires as far as application of these and aspects of our wells we have back here. So we're working through some of that. Looks like it's pretty positive, so don't foresee any issues. I think we can manage to meet what they're asking us to do. So, like I said, we're working through that right, as we speak. Derek's been involved quite a bit in it too. So we've been really, and he can touch it base on anything extra if you want. But I think that's pretty positive, and I think it'll provide us a nice warehouse. It's it'll be the same size as we have back here, the 100 by 120 with the corridor in between them to run forklifts, and people can walk back and forth through there. It'll have 2 doors in it, so we can maintain the dust better. It'll be heated. We're not looking at as much concrete around it as we would like, but the cost of the things are just getting astronomical, so we have to reduce some of that to kind of keep them down, so cost down. We'd really like to move forward with that next year. Like I said, we're nearly just over half kind of way through the engineering part of it. So we do have the bidding and portion and everything like that, doing all the bids and get materials and things like that, so. That's all I have, so.
What size is the expansion?
It's 100 by 120. And it won't be attached only through a 20-foot corridor between the two, it won't be attached. So, what other questions you might have? All right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay, I'm going to touch on the HFC fiber cabinet replacement. Again, this is one of the communication projects, but this is to replace the fiber node enclosures that are out in the field. There's about 60 of them. They're deteriorating, and they're at the end of their useful life. So this cost will be split with electric and water. Also, the budgeting for the addition of an AMI gatekeeper. The gatekeepers are how we receive the data from the meters, and then it's brought back to the head end. Adding one of these will kind of help with the mesh network. It'll make it communicate better. The location of this is likely to be on the outer limits of the AMI system. And the ESXi network upgrade, that is upgraded equipment for storage network. The storage network equipment houses all of like our software. believe they're also referred to as portable machines. The current equipment we have is end of life, and this will be split by, as you can see, it's in many other different departments there between electric and water. Moving on up there to the electric communications, the Bryan Street Hub network upgrade. This is upgrading the Cisco core network equipment. This equipment's over 20 years old, and it's also at the end of its useful life. And the power plant network upgrade is virtually the same thing that it's with the power plant. So I'll let Brock talk about the electric utility office.
Good evening, I'm Brock Beck with the engineering department. In the 2025 budget, the engineering department would like to include for the purchase of new GPS Trimble rover and controller to replace an outdated unit. The rover and controller are used for all aspects of surveying within the utilities, from surveying the design of a project to construction layout, staking, and finally for gathering information for record-keeping purposes. Currently, the department has two rovers, a R12I and an R2. As technology continues to improve, the R2 has become outdated. We would like to replace it with another R12I that is more accurate and efficient. And I also believe having two of the same rovers and controllers within the department will help improve our workflow efficiency. The estimated cost of the new rover and controller is $37,000, which will be split between the electric and water offices. Thank you, and I guess any questions on the rover controller? Thank you.
Okay, total 2025 electric utility capital improvements are $2.7 million. This just takes a look at the capital fund for the electric. We ended 2023 and began 2024 with a fund balance of $4.7 million. There you see the $300,000 transfer. The other revenues of $2,300 is the sale of some assets through gov deals. So for 2024, we had total capital funds of just over $5 million, and our projected year-end expenses in the capital fund are 2.9. That would leave us with a projected fund balance of just over $2 million to start 25 with. Again, we're proposing a $2.2 million transfer, giving us total available capital funds in 2025 of $4.2 million, with capital improvement expenses projected to be $2.7 million. We would end 2025 with a projected balance of $1.5 million in the capital fund. Is there any questions on anything electric? Move to the water O&M fund. I'll start with the revenues. Customer sales or charged metered water. We had budgeted $2.59 million in 2024. We're projected to end the year at $2.7 million. And for 2025, we're proposing revenues of $2.6 million. Again, this is based on projections that we get from John Courtney. And we also take into consideration the continued installation of the AMI meters. They're more accurate than the old meters that they're replacing. Other operating, that's typically our lab that runs bacteria samples. In 24, we budgeted $7,000. We are projected to end the year at about $11,000. It's one of those unknowns, so we typically try to stay conservative, so we left it at the $7,000. And then interest income, there is an increase of about $60,000 there from 2024. Overall, water revenues for 25 are proposed at $2.787 million, compared to 2024 when they were $2.707 million. or an $80,000 increase. Water expenses in the 502 fund, supply and distribution. For 2024, we budgeted these at $1.9 million. Our projected year end is $1.6 million. And again, for 2025, we're proposing $1.9 million in expenses. Supply and distribution includes water treatment and water distribution. And then the billing and accounting, customer service and administration are very similar to 2024. Overall, total water O&M expenses, $2.539 million compared to $2.506 million in 2024. Just a $33,000 increase. Projected operating results for the 502 O&M fund. We ended 23 and started 24 with a fund balance of $2.4 million. We're projecting our year-end revenues to be $3 million and our year-end expenses to be $2 million, leaving us with a net margin of about $958,000. Debt service for the water department is about $176,000 for 24 and 25. And then also you see the $150,000 transfer. That was the additional one that we budgeted and that you approved several months ago. So at the end of 24, we're looking at an overall increase in the fund balance of $632,000. And that leaves us with a projected year-end fund balance of $2.7 million. Revenues for total revenues for 2025 are proposed at $2.7 million. Total expenses at $2.5 gives us a net margin of $248,000. We'll take into account the debt service again, and then also we're proposing a $300,000 transfer to the capital for 2025. This does give us a decrease in the fund balance of about $228,000. We would end 2025 with $2.5 million as the fund balance. The minimum cash reserve policy is about $2.1 million, so still above that as well. I mentioned the debt service, so there's two different items here. The Town Line Road water main replacement project. Total payment for that is just under $41,000. And those payments will continue until 2029. And then also the principal and interest payments for the AMI system of $135,000. And those payments will continue until 2033. So total debt service of that $176,000. Any questions on that? Okay, we'll move to the water capital.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight I'd like to discuss with you the 2025 water capital improvement projects and the funds associated with them. First up you'll see is the well 1 rehabilitation. This will consist of deploying a vertical turbine motor that we currently have there in place right now and replacing it with a submersible pump. This is a practice that we've been doing over the past 3 to 4 years. We found out with the well industry, a submersible pump, the efficiency are a lot better, parts available are a lot better to us, and the turnaround time for a rebuild is a lot quicker than what we currently have. Next up, you'll see hydrants, meters, and valves. We have $20,000 set aside for that. We typically utilize these funds based upon our valve exercising programs and our hydrant flushing programs that we conduct annually. These funds are utilized to fix any faulty valves, hydrants, or meters that we find during those times. Next up, you'll see the distribution saddle and service replacement. We have $10,000 set aside there. These funds will help us eliminate any lead service lines that are on the public side owned that BMU maintains and takes care of. That's what those funds will be utilized for. Next up, for our first water main replacement project, you'll see it's the East Mulberry Street project. This project will consist of a new 8-inch PVC water line install. This project will be a bidded project for 2025. Under that project, you see the West Bryan Street main replacement. This is going to take place at the 300 and through the 500 block of West Bryan Street. That project is going to take place with, it's going to be installed with 8-inch PVC line. It's going to be roughly 1,700 foot and consists of 24 new services for our customers. Next up you'll see is the South M Street main replacement. Right now those customers are currently provided with a galvanized line right through there. It's a 2-inch line. This project we're looking to utilize our new boring rig for our water employees to utilize. We'll be installing a 2-inch PVC line through there with our boring rig, and that consists of 3 services as well. For the water treatment plant, we're looking to replace truck 61 with a half-ton truck. This is going to replace a 2008 Chevy that we've had in the department for quite a long time. So we've got our use out of it. Next up, you'll see the water treatment plant header and control valves. These 2 valves are the heartbeat of our water treatment plant. We found out that these valves have changed over the years, and we're looking to have those new valves installed and help maintain our water treatment plant. Beacon Street water line replacement project. That's going to be an 8-inch PVC line going to be installed. This is in conjunction with the city's paving program. We'd like to get this installed before they go ahead and make the new pavement there on Beacon Street. There's only 1 service on that as well. Next up, you'll see the high service pump 1 rehab. Every 3 to 5 years, we like to take a close look at our high service pumps. These high service pumps run about 10 to 12 hours a day. They pump out anywhere from 2,100 gallons a minute to about 2,500 gallons a minute to provide our customers with treated water. Along with those funds and those capital projects, and along with Joe's network upgrades with the department splits and Brock's upgraded rover, we're looking at just a little over 1.1 million for water capital improvement plans. Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Okay, this slide will just take a look at the projected operating results and fund balances for the water capital fund. We ended 2023 and started 2024 with 1.6 million. There was the additional $150,000 transfer. We did receive other revenues in the sale of fixed assets. So in 24, total capital funds available was 1.7 million. Projected year-end capital expenses are 1.1 million, leaving us with a fund balance at the end of 24 with about 620,000. Proposed for 2025 is the $300,000 capital transfer. We also are anticipating grant proceeds of $590,000. That is from an Ohio EPA $50,000 grant for a generator, and then Ohio Public Works and CDVG grants for the South Wind Street project. And again, this total of $590,000. And then we also are anticipating $275,000 in grants for the East Mulberry Street water line project. So total available capital funds in 25 will be 1.7 million. Total projected capital expenses of 1.1 million leaves us with a projected fund balance at the end of 2025 of 641,000. Any questions on the audit? Okay, communications. And obviously with the internet service ending December 9th, the communications budget looks a lot different than previous years. Like I said, we try to roll as much as we could into the 501. So we'll just kind of go through it. The customer sales, this is still our dark fiber customers. We also did put a small amount of revenue in there for kind of residual internet customers that would roll into next year. And then also a fiber lease agreement. So we proposed revenues of about $166,000 for 2025. Still is $35,000 in interest income for total proposed communication revenues of $201,000. On the expense side, supply and distribution. So in '24, we had budgeted just a little over $904,000, and we project the end of the year at $741,000, and we're proposing expenses of $604,000 in 2025. So supply and distribution expenses is the lease of our T1 lines. Those are 2 circuits that come to the head end. One is from Cogent, which used to be Sprint, and the other one is Artec. And then also included in there is the final lease payment for the electric of $279,000. So of that $604,000 expense, 88% of it is the final lease payment and the lease of those T1 lines. Projected operating results for the 509 O&M. We ended 23 and began 24. With a balance of 1.9 million. Projected year-end revenues, 840,585, and our projected expenses of 840,547. So a net margin of $38. We would project the end of the year at 1.914 million. In 25, we're proposing total revenues of $201,000 and total expenses of $604,000 with a negative net margin of about $403,000. So we're projecting to end 25 at 1.5 million, and then in, I believe, 26, those funds would roll over into the 501. On the capital, communications capital fund, we ended 23 and started 24 with about $82,000. Like you've seen in the other departments, we did sell some assets. So in 24, we had total available capital funds, just over 82,000, projected capital expenses of 14,000, leaving us with a fund balance to start 25 of 68,675. We have no other capital projects planned for that. As you can see, we haven't for the past several years. Any questions on communications? So that's all the slides we have for you tonight. Not asking for approval this evening. We will bring this back to you at the December 3rd meeting. Between now and then, we'll continue to maybe make minor changes or tweaks here and there as we see necessary. When we bring it to you for approval on the 3rd, we'll update you on any much changes that we have. So, if you have any additional questions or comments, feel free to reach out to any of the department heads or myself. That's nothing else. Thank you.
Thanks, Derek.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you. Thank you all. Next on the agenda is to effect semi-monthly disbursements. It's a short list this time. Motion?
Make a motion to pay the bills.
Second?
Dick?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes.
Comments from BBA staff? Derry? management?
I have nothing additional.
Mayor?
Well, thank you to all the supervisors and Mr. Schultz for the in-depth budget descriptions for us. I look forward to hearing it again at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning with Mr. Benson, Ms. Letterman, and John Leonard. So, well done again. Thanks for your explanations on the capital expenses for next year.
John?
Nothing else.
I'll lump you all in together. Appreciate all that you've presented to us and the detail that you've given us. Appreciate that.
No comments. I know.
Whoa.
I know. I usually have something.
Hard.
I have something for Derek, but
Yeah.
he already answered it, so.
Hats off to all department heads, Derek. Hard work on the budget. Looks like really solid, good numbers. Nothing to panic about. Other than that, that's all I have.
Jim?
I'd just like to thank the department heads too for the presentation and what looks like a good budget.
Annette?
I'm going to agree with these guys. It's a good, solid budget. The numbers seem reasonable. There's nothing outrageous in there, so good job.
I agree as well. You can only do so much with what you're given in quotes. I understand that very well, so congratulations on figuring things out and making a solid plan. Appreciate that. Okay. Up next is, the board is going to enter into executive session after a brief recess. The executive session is to discuss the employment and compensation of public employees. Asked to attend are the BPA, Dario, Mayor Schlade, John, and Tricia. Can I have a motion to go into executive session? Recess? Motion for a recess? Okay, motion for a recess.
Second.
Dick?
Yes.
Annette?
Yep.
Karen?
Yeah.
Jim?
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.